First of all, tech stocks, they've taken a pounding today. It's not going to be a good day in the ASX, I wouldn't have thought.
No, I think you're right. I think the ASX will suffer. Fortunately, we won't suffer as much as the NASDAQ because that's the high-tech index in the US. It was down about 4.1% overnight and is down over 10% in 3 days. So it's in correction territory. But we've got to put this into context, Peter. The NASDAQ has gone beyond where it was before the crash. And so therefore, you kind of expected a pullback. One of the big drivers overnight was, Tesla dropped 21.1%. Now, a lot of people say, well, how come? Well, there was an expectation they would creep into the S&P 500 index because they've become so big. But the guys who work out who goes in and who doesn't go in think, there's probably too much speculation in Tesla. So they're still outside it. So all the funds that are linked to the S&P 500 who we're expecting to be buying Tesla now will be selling Tesla because they don't need Tesla in their index, their 500 stock fund. So therefore, it's a bit of crazy stuff going on.
What about NAB's figures that came out yesterday? What did you make of them?
I think they're all Victorian affected, quite frankly, Pete. If you look at them, business conditions went from -0.3 to -5.8, and that's what business is like right now. As a national number, they couldn't disaggregate Victoria, so Victoria is so important. I like the fact that confidence actually went, admittedly from a bad number, -14.2 to -8. That means that the other states are probably starting to get more confident, but confidence still would be terrible in Victoria.
Yeah, and how does this, affect the next quarter? Do you think now it will be a negative one for three in a row?
Yeah, I think so. It'd be extraordinary. The only thing that could save it, I guess, would be... Now, September's done and dusted when you think about it. We're in the September month now. December could be saved if a vaccine arrives. We've been hearing it could be January. January would be, great overall. But if it came in, say, December, therefore people could have vaccines and borders opened up and we could travel over Christmas, that would be great for the December quarter. But we're in the hands of vaccines.
Well, I'll tell you what, Greg Hunt, he was very positive about the vaccine coming out at the start of next year when he spoke on our program yesterday. He thought it might come out in the middle of next year. Now he's brought that forward and... well, I'll tell you what, that'll affect confidence, obviously. Just onto a couple of different stocks I want to ask you about, Pete. The whole buy now, pay later phase, we've all marvelled at the success story behind Afterpay at the moment. But there's now there's a few others that have come online that's kind of affected the price a little bit. Are we getting to the stage where there may well be a bit of an oversaturation?
Okay, I got to tell you my conflict here. I taught Anthony Eisen, the founder of Afterpay, and the Zip business is actually in our building in Spring Street, Sydney. So I interviewed the COO of Zip only yesterday, and I asked that same kind of question. Is there oversaturation? And like he's clearly acknowledging there's more rivals, but I asked the question: are you starting to see a demographic shift that it's not just the cool and young people like you, Peter, who are into things like Afterpay? Are older Australians getting into it? And the answer is yes, there's a demographic shift. So the market's becoming bigger. Also, the companies like Afterpay and Zip, they've gone into foreign markets, so they've got a wider pool to play at. And I also asked them about, the challenge from PayPal, because they're now sort of doing a sort of like a copycat product. And he said, the irony is they will actually help the growth of buy now, pay later. So they're not worried about it, but I think you're absolutely right. The growth that was spectacular, that growth will slow down now and they'll fall back. But I think the big first starter advantage companies like Afterpay and Zip will ultimately benefit from the fact that it becomes acceptable. Once upon a time it was just for young people. Now I think lots of people think, I can pay this back in four payments and I won't have to pay any interest.
Yeah, soften the blow. Just quickly, anything else to be positive about?
Oh, yeah, consumer confidence, that Roy Morgan ANZ one, which is done weekly, and I always like the monthly one, but since the crash, I've wanted to watch the weekly improvement. It was up this week. 3 out of 4 weeks, it's gone up. That's not bad considering, you've got the Victorian problem. So I think there's a great appetite to get back to normal, and this consumer confidence number is interesting. And also there's a thing called the Kepler Retail Index. It went up something like 14% last week. So there are good signs out there, Pete. And if it wasn't for Victoria, I would be really optimistic.
Wow.